Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Smells Like Business, a podcast for anyone who wants to learn more about the current and future state of cannabis in Europe. Every episode we talk to different business owners and cannabis specialists, making it easier for you to enter and better understand the cannabis industry. I'm your host Tom, and on this episode we thought we would do things a little differently. As it's the first episode of the new year, why not? So, I think it's safe to say that 2020 has been just a little bit of a tough year, to say the least. The only reason I'm not going to use any other words to describe it is because I don't want to mark this episode as explicit. Otherwise, trust me, my vocabulary would be quite different. But like anybody who knows me would tell you, I am a pretty optimistic guy, and I tend to usually focus on the positive. So with that in mind, we have decided to start 2021 with a summary of 2020, but a summary that will focus on the positive developments of cannabis and especially its path to legalization here in Europe. Because when you actually look at it, a lot of really good developments have happened over the course of 2020 in regards to cannabis. Developments that give us hope that the full legalization of cannabis, especially here in Europe, is actually achievable and attainable, and is hopefully not a million miles away from happening. So, we thought here at Smells Like Business it would be nice to have a list of 10 great cannabis things that happened in 2020 that will shape this next year, 2021. So, number 1, the Netherlands. I thought that might be a good place to start. So I'm sure most of you know what a coffee shop is, but just in case you don't, it's basically the Dutch equivalent to a dispensary in Canada or the US. But unlike dispensaries, coffee shops tend to have a certain hangout or chill factor, which kind of entices people to stay there and smoke their products in the establishment. So in essence, they feel actually a little bit more like a bar or a cafe, obviously minus the alcohol. So while dispensaries in Canada and the US have also received this essential business status, the big difference and the significance of this move in the Netherlands is the fact that cannabis is not legal there. It is actually a very common misconception that cannabis is legal in the Netherlands. It is only decriminalized, and because of a certain set of loopholes in the legal system, the Dutch coffee shops have been able to operate without too many problems. So, when the Netherlands went into their first lockdown, the government decided to treat coffee shops just like bars and restaurants and to simply close them down until the end of the lockdown. However, that changed very quickly when the government soon realized that the second the coffee shops closed their doors, illegal dealers appeared on the streets. So, the coffee shops were allowed to reopen, even if it was for pickup only, in order to prevent and reduce illegal activities and street crime. Which, at least to me, makes a lot of sense. Number 2. So staying on the topic of the Netherlands, they are actually about to start a recreational marijuana growing project. They have selected 10 growers, making them the first marijuana growers in Europe who will be legally authorized to cultivate the cannabis plant and for commercial purposes. It's actually quite a big deal. The program will start in February, and with many neighboring countries keeping a close eye, it is very important that we keep our fingers crossed for the success of this pilot program. Because if it is successful, the implications could potentially be huge in Holland, but also in the rest of Europe. It is a big step in the race to become the first country in Europe to legalize cannabis and move cannabis growing completely out from the shadows into the open. So yeah, the third point is actually another country that is making leaps and bounds when it comes to the world of cannabis. That is Luxembourg. So Luxembourg have declared that they are planning on legalizing adult use cannabis within the next 2 years. So this change, led by a very progressive Etienne Schneider, the health minister at the time, is something we are waiting for. As many of you might know, I was actually born and raised in Luxembourg, and I would love it to be the first country in Europe to legalize cannabis. So much so, I even toy with the idea of moving back to help develop the Luxembourgish cannabis market. Unfortunately, Etienne Schneider has left the government since the announcement, but we are hoping that his efforts won't go to waste and that the health ministry will get back on track with this plan as soon as Corona is under control, whenever that may be. So, number 4, talking about Corona. Obviously, while the pandemic is keeping the health departments of all governments as busy as ever, it has also pushed the world of science to conduct more research on the potential healing benefits of cannabis. So we currently have multiple research going on at the same time, focusing on checking if cannabis can help corona patients in any way. Early findings suggest that cannabinoids and terpenes may have the ability to lower the immune system's response without actually suppressing it. While no clear link between cannabis and corona has been made yet, the research is most likely going to benefit the cannabis industry in the long run and will legitimize the plant as a medical tool. So, a little side note before we move on with the list that I think is important to mention is that there has actually been a lot of talk in the cannabis world about terpenes over this last year. So, for those of you who don't know what terpenes are, they are the organic compounds that produce the smells and flavors in cannabis. So, terpenes have a wide range of aromas and flavors, from citrus and berry to pungent and skunky, and everything in between. So, depending on what terpenes are in a specific strain of cannabis, you can actually, with that information, create a flavor profile. Now, what's great about this is that the industry is starting to steer away from the indica-sativa hybrid model of differentiation to a terpene flavor profile based model. So in essence, we're moving away from talking about different varieties of cannabis and what kind of high it gives you to talking about different varieties of cannabis and what flavors they have. Now, number 5. France has actually announced that they will be conducting a pilot program to provide their most needing citizens with medical cannabis. The reason why this is so important is because France is one of the strictest Western European countries when it comes to cannabis, despite it having one of the strongest cannabis cultures in Europe. So legalizing cannabis for medical reasons would be a big deal. Just to illustrate how strict it is, only CBD with 0% THC is legal, which is crazy. Just to give you a point of reference, most European countries allow a tolerance of 0.3% THC in CBD products. And then there's Italy, which in 2020 raised the THC limit to 0.6%. And then you've got Switzerland, where you can actually go up to 1% THC in your CBD products. But yeah, coming back to this pilot program in France, the project will last about 2 years and aims at supplying 3,000 patients suffering from serious conditions that could actually be alleviated by the use of medical cannabis. So the pilot program will start this year and will only be the second such medical cannabis pilot project in Europe, after Denmark, who actually set up a similar program in 2018, which is still going on today. It is also worth noting that the cannabis that will be accessible to these participants or patients will be free of charge. Obviously, just like it should be. Yeah, number 6, another pilot program which I think is worth mentioning is one that's being run in Switzerland. So this is a limited pilot program to grow and distribute marijuana for recreational purposes. And also actually very recently added another rule. It has to be organic. So that's definitely a win for all of us. So actually, an interesting fact, only current cannabis consumers can participate in the program. So it is also important to note that we should not get too excited about it just yet, because the government did make it clear that the main purpose of this is to research the impact of recreational cannabis use. So the findings are supposed to help the government make better policies for the future that can actually potentially help combat issues related to prohibition, such as a flourishing illegal market or the inability to control the quality of the products on the market. So let's hope that the research proves that the best way to move forward is to simply legalize the plant. Number 7. As we're on the hot topic of legalization, I thought it might be good to talk a little bit about North Macedonia. So this small and very discreet country has turned out to be a big surprise of 2020, and they might end up being a big cannabis player of 2021. So basically, the current government is considering legalizing cannabis in order to actually give its corona-hit economy a much-needed boost. It looks like they're going to build their model based on the Netherlands. Of course, the only big difference being that cannabis will actually be legal in North Macedonia. The government is also obviously hoping that this will make North Macedonia a new tourist destination or hotspot for those interested in experiencing cannabis, but in a legal manner. That might end up working out quite nicely for the Netherlands, since they're actually getting a bit sick and tired of their cannabis tourism, and they're actually trying to wean away from that. Oh, it looks like we're working our way down the list here. So, number 8. think it's a good time to mention that while many businesses have been struggling throughout the pandemic, CBD sales have not only remained steady here in Europe, but have actually grown. And as more and more people discover what CBD can actually do, especially when it comes to anxiety or sleeping problems, the interest also in educating yourself grows as well. So CBD, with the help obviously of responsible and conscious brands that actually take charge in educating people about the benefits of cannabis, is slowly but surely becoming mainstream. The Brightfield Group predicts that in Europe alone, the CBD market is on course to grow 400% over the next 4 years. So if that's not exciting, then I don't know what is. Number 9. The list of good things that happened in 2020 would not be complete without mentioning the European Commission giving us an early Christmas gift by finally saying it like it is. CBD is not a drug. The European Commission made an official statement that hemp-derived CBD should not be regulated as a narcotic and can therefore qualify as food. This is great for 2 reasons. First of all, it's official, so CBD is not a drug. That sends a clear message to all EU member states that it's okay to allow and regulate CBD and that they should just go ahead and embrace it. Second of all, this ends the fear and panic caused by the EU novel food regulation, which, if you're not familiar with, would require CBD producers to acquire a special and very expensive pre-market authorization of CBD products, usually with a lot of testing involved, that would basically have the potential of putting a lot of small to medium-sized CBD companies out of business. It would also make selling CBD anywhere in Europe way more challenging. But thanks to the European Commission, that is no longer the case. So thanks for that. And last but not least, a bit more of a world event that is by far one of the most exciting things that happened in 2020 is that the United Nations have decided to follow the WHO's recommendation and reschedule cannabis and cannabis resin from Schedule 4 of the 1961 Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but the reasons why this matters so much is because the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs was blocking all countries that signed it from actually legalizing cannabis in their respective countries. So, for example, when Luxembourg actually announced their plans to legalize cannabis, many critics were saying that it just simply cannot be done because of this convention. But fortunately, this is now no longer a roadblock. The rescheduling will also give another boost to research, especially when it comes to the medical use of cannabis. So all in all, a very exciting development that can only benefit all countries reconsidering their current drug policies. So I think it's quite safe to say when you look back, 2020 really hasn't been all so bad. While it forced us here at Smells Like Business to cancel both of our events that were supposed to take place in Luxembourg and Barcelona, we have found other ways to bring you the information you need. Chances are we will still not have events in 2021, but we will still be here in the virtual world, bringing you exciting interviews every 2 weeks. We will also be launching a new website with some cool new stuff. I also want to thank everyone for joining us in 2020. Every episode brings more and more listeners, and seeing the numbers grow keeps us very motivated and excited to keep on doing what we're doing. I also want to thank all the guests we've had on the show. Without them and their insights, this show just wouldn't be possible. So hopefully 2021 will be another good year for the world of cannabis, and hopefully it'll be a bit more of a bearable year for the rest of us too. Please do remember to check out our website at www.smellslikebusiness.com and sign up to our newsletter. I've been your host, Tom. Have a green year, everybody.
Smell like business.